In this session, we will discuss how to download and configure Laravel 11.x project and test whether your installation is properly done. We will do this in few steps. First, we need to download and configure PHP. So then we need to download and install MySQL. We will be using SAM for WAMP server. Then we will download and install Visual Studio Code. And then we will download and install Composer, which is a PHP package manager. And using Composer, we will create a Laravel 11.x project. And then we'll configure it and create a simple hello route, controller and page to test it. So let's first download and configure PHP. So you need to check with the documentation what is the minimum required PHP version for your Laravel. For example, I am using Laravel 11. Say Laravel 11 minimum PHP. So you can look at it from the official site or by doing a Google search. So in my case, the minimum required PHP version is 8.2. Therefore, I have to make sure that the correct PHP version is download and install. So I'll just do a search for PHP and php.net folder site. I will download and install PHP. In this case, PHP 8.3 is there, which is higher than 8.2. I just download it. Since I am using my Windows machine, I will go for the Windows download. Since the zip download is available, I will go for that, because then I don't have to install anything. So once my download is done, I will copy it. Then I will create a folder, maybe something like PHP in my case. You can give any name. So I'll call it PHP. Then I will unzip it to that particular folder. Right. So the next step is we need to add this PHP folder to the path environment variable, so that other command line tools like PHP package managers pick where the PHP is installed. So therefore, I will copy the path cphp in my case. Then I will search for settings, and there I will search for environment variable. Better to edit the system environment variable if you can. Otherwise, you can even edit the user environment variable. Right, I'll go for the system environment variable. Under system variables, there's a variable called path. Make sure you add an entry at the end with your PHP folder. Right, so that's it when it comes to adding the environment variable. Now you can check whether your PHP is working by taking a command line and type PHP space -- version, and it should give you a proper version number. So then you can confirm that your PHP is properly configured. In my case, it says 8.3.4. Right, so now we need to do few more configurations. So all these steps are in the description of this video. So therefore, you can always refer to that and copy and paste. So the next thing you want to do is make sure you rename the php.ini-development file in the PHP folder into php.ini. So then we need to do some changes to that file. So this is my php.ini development. So I will delete the development part, so that now the file name is php.ini. Then make sure you search for each and every entry here in the description and uncomment. So basically you just need to remove the semicolon in front of the each and every entry in your php.ini file. So I will search for that, the php.ini, Control F, and you can see it is commented. So I just need to remove the semicolon. So make sure you do this for all these entries in the description. Right, now I have uncommented all those entries mentioned in the description. So that means all these entries in the newly created, newly renamed php.ini file. Now you want to do another small change, that is search for extension dir, extension dir in your newly renamed php.ini file, not the SQLite 3, the extension dir, this one. So sometimes this might work, but make sure for better results, make sure you copy the ext folder of your PHP, newly created PHP folder, and paste that path to that environment variable. And also make sure you uncomment that entry. Okay. So now it is, in my case, cphp.ext. Right. So then another change we can do is, that is search for memory limit and increase the 128 to 256. So that is optional, but it's better. 128, change it to 256. Right, so now we have done all the changes. Make sure you save your SQLini. We are done with the configuration of PHP ini file. Now let's check whether PHP is properly working. Right, so I will create a folder in my, say, D drive, or let's create a folder in my C drive. So I'll call it my Laravel project. Still, of course, I am not using Laravel. I just call it Laravel project, and I will create a new PHP file, new text file, and I will rename it to PHP. Just call it hello.php. I just want to check whether PHP is working. Right, you can use your whatever your text editor. I'll be using my notepad. Just write a simple hello, right, question mark PHP, and maybe echo something like 5 plus 2, just to check whether PHP is working, and save it. And now take a command line and go to your folder in project. So then I'll type PHP and the file name, in my case it is hello.php. Right, I got it as 7, so that means PHP is working, because there's a PHP server, built-in PHP server, that I'm using, that PHP server, which I have downloaded and configured. So now the PHP is properly working. Now I can move on to my next step, that is start the PHP server and check whether the server is also running. So how to do that? You can just copy paste this command, php-s localhost colon whatever the port number. I will be using the 8000. Okay. So just check that also, just to double check whether the PHP server is working. Now you can just browse to the localhost colon 8000 and /test.php, because that is our PHP file. Okay. So take your favorite browser and do that also. It's always good to double check these things, so that when there's an issue, you know exactly where the issue is. Right, so it looks like I have some issues with my test.php. Why is that? Okay, my file name is not test.php, my file name is hello.php, so therefore I just rename it hello.php in my browser, and I got it as 7, so that means the PHP is properly configured. So that part is now fully done. My next step is download and install MySQL. So there are so many ways you can download and install MySQL, either MySQL or MariaDB. So in my case, I have already downloaded and installed SAM. So therefore, I will be using the SAM server to configure MySQL. Right? So if you want to download SAM server, okay, you can download and install whatever the way, right? But if you prefer to use SAM, you can just search for SAM, apachefriends.org, and download the Windows version, and just like any other software, just install. So once you install SAM, And search for the SAM. So then you will get SAM control panel. So there you need to start the MySQL, and I will start my Apache web server as well, because by default Apache web server runs on 80, and I will be starting my PHP server in something like 8000. So there are no conflicting situations. So make sure that both are green. So then again you can double check whether your MySQL is running. Of course the green means it is running, by going to the admin panel of the MySQL. So in order to go there, you need to run Apache as well. So basically we are going to the PHP myadmin, and this is what you will get. Of course you will not see a lot of databases like that, because this is my existing installation. There are so many databases, but you will see only one or two databases. So that confirms that your MySQL is also now properly configured. Right, so that step is done. Right, so our next step is download and install Visual Studio Code. So you can use whatever your favorite IDE, integrated development environment, for PHP. I prefer the Visual Studio Code because it's super simple. Okay, so you can download. You can do a search if you haven't used Visual Studio Code yet. WSC or Visual Studio Code. Just go and download the Visual Studio Code and install it. So just like any other software installation. Okay, so that we will be using later to do the code edits and run our applications. So I have already downloaded and installed it, so therefore I just start it. VSC. Right, so that is my Visual Studio Code editor, which is very simple code editor from Microsoft. Right, so that step is also done. Now I want to install Composer. Composer is a PHP dependency management software which help configuring, running, installing other PHP related software. So again, you can do a Google search, PHP or the Composer. So just make sure you download and install the latest Composer. You can just go to the download, and you can download the Windows install and install it. Just make sure you download and install the latest Composer. Okay, so I have already installed it. Remember, Composer is a command line tool. So if you want to double check whether Composer is properly installed, once you install it, you can just type Composer space minus version in a command line. Okay, so my server is running, I will just stop it, and then I will type Composer, because I have already installed it. You have to install it, you need to install it if you haven't done it. Composer minus version after installing, and it says my current Composer version is 2.72, and also it shows what is my current PHP version also. Right, so that is also done, and now I am ready to create my Laravel project. So I don't want to download anything from the Laravel website, because I can create a Composer project. Sorry, I can create a Laravel project using my Composer. So how to do that? Composer command, you have to say Composer create project. So then you have to say Laravel/Laravel and then your project name. So that will, your Composer will download all the dependencies and create a Laravel project for yourself. Right, so I'll just copy paste this. Make sure you are in the correct folder. In my case, I want to create under Laravel project. So now I run this particular command, and it will take a little bit of time. Make sure you have the internet connectivity. It need to download few dependencies and set up your project. Sometimes it might take about 1 minute. Right now, all my dependencies are downloaded by the Compose, and Compose has created the Laravel project. So you can double check whether the folder structures are created. Now you can see that under uh, Laravel project, there's a subfolder called my project, and under my project there are so many folders created. Now I can even delete my hello.php which I created just to check whether my PHP is working. Okay, so I just delete it, and my project folder or my Laravel project folder is my app, because uh, that is the project that I created. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to load this project into Visual Studio Code so that I can edit and run the project from Visual Studio Code. Of course, I can run it from my Windows command line as well, but it's convenient to run it from Visual Studio Code and do some code editing. What you have to do is make sure you have opened your Visual Studio Code, and then drag and drop the newly created folder into the project area. So now of course all your folders are available, like app folder and subfolders and so on, in your Visual Studio Code environment. So now we have loaded it to the Visual Studio Code as well. Right. So now we need to do small changes or configuration to your newly created Laravel project. So first thing you want to do is modify the .env file in your project root folder. Configure the project to MySQL, because we will be using MySQL as the database. Okay, right. So how to do that? Search for the .env file in the root folder and search for the database related entries. Now here you can see DB connection and it says SQLite. So make sure you change it to MySQL, and you can uncomment these lines and change according to your MySQL configuration. In my case, I have installed MySQL using SAM, so therefore the default, this is localhost, this is the default port that you can double check from here. In my case, MySQL is running on 3306, so therefore this port number is correct, otherwise you need to change it. So you can call your database any name, so I will call it hello. In my case, the database name, I will call it hello. Default, the root username and blank password I will be using, but if you have created any other user, you can just use that username and password. So I'll call that database name as, say, hello. Right, so make sure you save it. Now you need to do bit of database related stuff. Okay, right. So there are some, so your Laravel project expect some default tables to be created in the database. Okay, so therefore you need to migrate that using the artisan command line tool available in the Laravel environment. So these scripts are already there under database. So just you need to, okay, let's double check. So you can see under database, migration. So there are some scripts already available. So those scripts will be executed or relevant scripts will be executed in your database. So make sure your database is up and running, and then you need to run this particular command, which is artisan command. Artisan commands are available in Laravel once your project is configured. So we prefer to run these things from your Visual Studio Code. So therefore you can take a command from the Visual Studio Code and run it from there also. So therefore I will take a command line from the Visual Studio Code itself. So to that you can take the shortcut Control J. So this is your command lines from the Visual Studio environment, and it is in the my app folder. Now I can do the migration. PHP artisan migrate. Make sure your database configurations are correct and your database is up and running. Okay, so it will create a database called hello, and it will create some tables, preliminary tables required for the Laravel project. So I run it, and it says the database hello doesn't exist on the MySQL connection. Of course, it doesn't exist right now. Would you like to create it? Yes is the default, so I'll just say enter, and it has created some tables. If you want, you can double check whether the database called hello is created by going to the PHP myadmin, and maybe you can do a refreshing and see whether yes, you can see there's a database called hello is created, and few tables like cache logs, right, jobs, migrations, resources, and so on are created. So those are some built-in tables required for the authentication, cache management, and so on. So those are created by your artisan command. So that step is also now done. Okay, so now we can start the PHP development server using the artisan command from our Visual Studio Code environment. Make sure you have shut down your server if you have already started the PHP server from your Windows environment. I have already shut down. I will not be using the command line. From this point onwards, I will be pretty much using the command line within the Visual Studio Code. Okay. So how to start the PHP server? A PHP artisan serve, that is a command we use, so that you can run from your command line. A PHP artisan serve. Okay. So now you can either copy this or control click in your browser so that you can open it in the browser. Right. So I'll go to my browser, paste it, and check whether yes. So if you get this kind of a default Laravel home page, so that means your PHP server is running and your Laravel project is properly configured. Okay. Right. So now we have done that step as well. Now we just want to add a route, controller, and view, and check whether those are also properly working. Super easy. First, you need to add a route to your web PHP file under routes. Okay, so we can open the web PHP file under routes. So under routes, there's a file called web PHP. By default, there's a one route here. That is the default route. So I will be adding one more route to this one. Okay, so that is, I'll copy paste to preserve time. I'll call it hello route or / hello route, and that route will be handled by our controller called hello controller. Right, hello controller, and its index method. So still we haven't added the hello controller, but we have added the route. Okay, we have added the route. Now if you type something like this part / hello, still we have not added the controller, so therefore it says hello controller does not exist, obviously. So now we want to add the, remember Laravel is a model view controller, MVC architecture framework. So now we need to add the controller. So to add the control, again we can use the artisan command because it adds you the boilerplate code. Okay, so how to do that? So there's an artisan command called make controller. So then you have to give the controller name, because I add it as hello controller. So I will create a controller called hello controller. So now this one is running a server. So therefore I will take a new command line. From there, of course, now anytime I can go to the previous one because that is my server is running. Now I will paste this PHP artisan make colon controller hello controller, because that is the expectation according to my route. Okay, so then I will execute it, and the hello controller has been created. So hello controller is created under app http folder. So already there's a controller called controller php. It's abstract class. So now this is the newly created hello controller from your artisan command. Now you can see that the hello controller has been created, and it extends the controller class already available, and it has not added any code. And now we need to add a method called index to handle my route, hello route. Okay, so that is super easy. Just add a function called index. In my case, I just copy paste to make it faster. Make sure you add it inside your newly created hello control. It's just a PHP function called index, and in this index I will just add a created variable. Then I will return the view called hello. To that hello view, I will pass this parameter, a parameter called text, and that parameter will have this particular text. Okay, so this is just to check whether the parameter passing is also working in my view. Now I have added my route, and also I have added my controller for that particular route and its method, handling method, because I'm expecting a method called index. Okay, and that index, that method is returning a view called hello, and to hello view I am passing a parameter called text with hello beautiful world text. So my final step is add a view. In Laravel we call it blade file. So you need to add the view under resources views. Because my view is hello, you need to create a file called hello.blade.php under resources views. So go to the resources folder and views folder. There's already a view called welcome blade php. That is what you can see when you go for the default page like this. Okay, so now I want to create another blade file, which is a view file. Say new file, say hello.blade.php. That is the naming convention you need to follow. Right, so now you can create your blade file. It's just a normal PHP file, or maybe it can be even HTML file. So remember, I'm passing a parameter called text from my controller, which I want to print in my view. Okay, so how to do that? You need to have the two curly brackets and your parameter name together with dollar, and close the two curly brackets. I will put it into a h1. Okay, or heading 1. Right, so I'm done. Make sure you can save everything. Right, save everything. Save all, or save individual files. Otherwise, you will getting into issues. Okay, everything. Make sure you save it. Right. So now I'm ready to test whether my hello route is working, because I have a route in my web XML, web PHP. Then I have the controller created with the relevant action method. There I am passing it to the hello view, which I have created as the hello.blade.php under resources. Okay, so now I can test whether it's working by typing your localhost slash colon 8000 slash hello, because my route is hello and it says hello beautiful world. So that means I have all the proper route, and route has called the controller. Controller has sent the view, and to that view it has passed the parameter which the view shows. So this confirms that my Laravel project is now properly configured, and I can start working on that. So I hope this really helped you quickly set up your Laravel projects. In another session, I will explain you how to set up databases and make it a little bit more serious application. And also I will explain how to configure and set up your Laravel project into your live server environment or live web hosting environment. Thank you.